Because you know I'm all about that bass, no trouble. I'm all about that bass, no trouble. I'm all about that bass, no trouble. I'm all about that bass, bass. Yeah, it's pretty clear. I ain't no size 2.
I was teaching an intro class last night, and I said something that I'm sure I talked about it before, but I guess I never have because people were like, oh, I said, I should tweet that. And so it came to me in a new way, but I think it had, I was thinking about it on the way here, and I thought, well, there's so many insights about it. And I think the thing that I said, somewhere along the lines of, you guys, the whole point about acting, or the process of any kind of creative process act is, you don't have it all figured out and then do it or present it. You are figuring it out whilst doing it. And if you look at any of the great art that's ever been created, from Picasso, in different kind of mediums, from Picasso to Stravinsky to, when I think about filmmakers like Ingmar Bergman or John Cassavetes, they were all into process. And the process delivers, what's his name? Talk about process. Richard Linklater, who has that new movie out, Boyhood. That took them 12 years to make. Now talk about process. There's no foregone conclusion about how they're going to make it. How do they, if you don't know about that movie, they basically take a young kid, don't know how old he is when they start the movie, and then over 12 years, they watch him actually grow up in chronological real time. So they don't have it all figured out when they're filming it. It's a developmental thing in process. So that's the thing, that's the real true creative spark that we're trying to access in our work. And the problem is I think, first of all, just culturally, what we're inundated with now all the time is constant data overload where we get information immediately, and so I think there is no patience for this thing called process, right? We get upset when we don't get the information that we heard about, or we feel like we should get more news, or it should come instantaneously. And yet I think it's interesting because with the advances of technology, that's great, that's fine, I guess, and yet it doesn't trump life itself. Life itself is in process. So I think the thing about thinking about that in terms of acting is just think about your own life. It's like you have your idea about life and you certainly don't have it figured out. But can you imagine? Well, listen, sometimes we think that we do, and then what happens? Life throws you many curveballs on a daily basis. So there's your idea about life, the mapped out, planned out version you have playing in your head, especially when you're in your 20s and you think it's all going to play out that way. Well, I'm here to help save you from an inordinate amount of pain and suffering. It's not going to work out that way. It could work out, hopefully it will work out in innumerable ways that are more exciting and dynamic and joyful than this part. But holding on to that part, which is the presentation of an idea, is what creates suffering. Because life just doesn't play by your rules. Life does itself. So again, process. Do you see process? I just think that it's really important that in the business that itself sometimes is about generating the end result, you have to not lose your own connection to process. And to me, again, the best filmmakers and the artists that are doing the kind of work that we're inspired by stay in process. Now that doesn't mean all the things that you're going to go out for, or all the things that you're going to be doing, or all the things that you're going to be on set showing up and being asked to do is going to indulge you in that, because it's about numbers and money and getting there quickly. But that's also why we're trained the way we're trained, so that you can deliver that. But that also does not, you see, this is interesting, that also doesn't mean it has to be in conflict. You can learn how to get to a desired result, but still not compromise your own inner journey. Isn't that exciting? That's what we're doing here, is learn how to move very quickly and get to somewhere truthful, and many permutations of getting somewhere truthful, and yet not compromise the reason why you want to act in the first place. You guys, that's the truth of it. I just want to end with this quote, because I don't know if it's necessarily apropos, but it is in a way, because when Cate Blanchett did Blue Jasmine, she talked about, I read this, my assistant just printed this up, and so he found it, because I remember reading this when I was in Sydney teaching, and I was really blown away by, so Cate Blanchett showed up on set, and she's sort of exploring and tapping into well, that Blue Jasmine is sort of a contemporized retelling of Streetcar. Thank you, right? So here she is doing it, and the first couple days, apparently, Woody Allen basically, if he didn't say she was terrible, it was sort of implied. And she, for the first 3 days, she was absolutely flipping out. Can you imagine? This is Cate Blanchett. And she was getting nothing from Woody Allen. And so she was like, oh my God, this is going to be awful. I'm awful. It's awful. She could not figure it out. And then I guess on the day 3, for some reason that's how I'm remembering it, it kind of clicked. And Woody Allen says this. He says, well, first he says, I just remember saying do the scene a little faster, or a peripheral comment, but I had seen Cate in a number of movies, and there was no question in my mind that she was perfect for this. I always feel if you hire great people, the best thing is to get out of their own way and let them do the things that they have been doing for years. Now, that may have been also coming from he himself does not get involved, maybe, with an actor's process. But the point is she figured it out. You don't figure it out by coming to set and having it all magically orchestrated. Julia Roberts talked about that working with Meryl Streep in August Osage County. The biggest light bulb she had about working with her was she came to set, she obviously was prepared and ready to go and ready to jump in and do what she had to do to deliver her work. And yet in the blood and guts of it all, they were trying to what? Figure it out. So what if you just cut yourself some slack and realize you're doing great? Doesn't mean you have to have it all figured out. Doesn't mean you have to have all the answers. Doesn't mean you have to present everything and have it executed perfectly. It doesn't mean you have to walk around in life having all the answers for all things. What if you just think about your life in terms of what's one thing that you generally beat yourself up about? Just one. I mean, there's 10,000 that you generally beat yourself up about, that this week you are going to do a self-intervention. It's coming to me now like that. A self-intervention where you're just going to enjoy the process of figuring it out. Where did we lose the joy in that?
Yeah, it's pretty